tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use SketchUp for schools. Like we just did, we set up an account through your Surrey Schools Microsoft account. So please, when you are home, follow those same instructions. Go to SketchUp for Schools and then click Started, and then you should be able to go through those steps and open this up, and you'll have access to all of your projects and stuff, and all will be on the home page. We click Get Started. And we have, like I said here, we have Temple Grandin. This person is here is kind of like an idea of scale. This is the real size of an adult female. So you have an idea when you're drawing things, you can just very quickly see if they're to scale, like if you could fit one person in, which is really nice because SketchUp can become really disorienting, or any 3D modeling software where you like zoom in and zoom out, or you're placing things, or you're scaling things. It can become really disorienting if you don't have a point of reference. So she's a really great little point of reference in the corner. So I'll show you some of the drawing tools and the modify tools, and then I'm going to show you the 3D warehouse. And like with those things, you should be able to draw like a half decent shelter. Now, there are tons of tutorials online for SketchUp. If you have something specific that you want to do, you can look at those, or you can ask me if it's like your day in class, and I would be happy to help you. So getting started, once you've decided what it is that you're making, then you'll come here to actually make that thing. So I'll show you a couple things that are kind of helpful. First one, on the left-hand side here, we have a toolbar. You can search SketchUp or whatever, then you have your selector, erase, paint. The cool thing about paint is you can paint not just like colors, but textures. So if you were to paint something with like glass, you can actually see through it. So it's like you can paint like a material or a texture, which is kind of cool. You have line for drawing, and then all of these expand out with like other tools. This one here, which is like drawing an arc. You can draw on the different planes. Another thing I'll show you in just a second. And then here you can draw rectangles, but you can also draw a rotated rectangle or a circle or a polygon inscribed in a circle or three-dimensional text. And then there's our 3D tools, which is push, pull, follow me, and offset. You can also use this one to make like a shell. So that's where you draw a whole bunch of 2D lines, and then it puts those things together to make a 3D surface. And then you have some modify tools like move, rotate, scale. This tool is really helpful. This is measure. So you can actually like measure things to see how big they are, because one of your criteria is that you have to tell me how big everything is. So that's where you're going to want to use the measure tool, or you can use the dimension tool, which shows you again how big things are. This is helpful also. This is the section plane. So if you want to show me inside something, so say you've put a roof on your shelter and you want to show me inside, you may want to consider the section plane. So that's again under the tape measure. It's called section plane, and it would just like slice into your object wherever you've determined, and then it shows the inside. And then there's this here, walk. So you can actually like take a person's view through and walk through, which is kind of neat. And you can position cameras and you can look around and stuff like that. And then the last one is orbit. So this is really helpful for getting around your file. So you can use orbit to rotate, you can use the hand to pan, you can zoom in, zoom out, and zoom extents. Zoom extents is super helpful if you've inserted something from the 3D warehouse that's really big and you lost all the rest of your stuff and you're like lost in SketchUp land. You can go to zoom extents and it'll zoom everything that you've drawn. So you should not be lost anymore. Trust me, it happens. And then on the right-hand side, so I'll go back to select, and we'll close this. On the right-hand side, we have another toolbar where we have all of these different tools here. So this first one is entity info, which is like if you've drawn something, you can actually select it and read the info. Yours won't have any info because you haven't saved it into the 3D warehouse, but if you bring something in from the 3D warehouse, it'll have information. There's a little instructor that helps you if you get stuck. So you can go through some of those tutorials. The third one down is components. This is where you can search the 3D warehouse. This I'll get into in a little bit more detail soon. Then there's materials, which is where you can apply like materials. You can also do that using paint. You can load in custom materials if you wanted like a specific pattern or like a whole bunch of Nicolas Cage's face all over something, you could add that. Next, we have styles. So this is more to do with like, if you're getting to the point where your project's really complicated and it's getting really glitchy, you may want to go in styles and switch to simple style. And that'll remove any of the like fancy paint and finishes that you put on things, and it'll make it easier to navigate in your file because it can get really like bogged down with stuff. Tags, we don't really need to talk about, we don't really need to talk about that. Scenes is interesting. So scenes, again, is if you wanted to like make recordings and stuff. The display as well. So display is kind of nice. So if you've sort of like slice, if you've drawn something and you want to like hide the roof for a little while so you can like add furniture inside, you can select something and you can right click and hide it. And then you go to the little pair of glasses here and then you can show your hidden objects. You can go find the roof again. So I'll show you how to do that shortly. Same as section cuts. You can turn on section cuts and turn off section cuts. So it's where you quickly can cut something in half and look inside and then like work inside. And what else do we have here? Model information we don't really need to know about, and the solid inspector we don't really need to know about. But that's like more or less what you're going to use. I'll show you like kind of how to get started. So if you wanted to make something that was more of like, I don't know, say like a cabin style or whatever, you'd probably start by drawing walls. So I'll use rectangle for that. And then when you draw, you have the option to draw on different planes. So if you'll notice, you have an X, a Y, and a Z plane. So your X plane is red. It's like right by Temple Grandin's feet. Your Y plane is green, and your Z plane is blue. And then when you're drawing, it previews in like a color, so you know what plane it is that you're drawing on. So if you're going to be drawing in your X plane or your Y plane or your Z plane. So I'm going to draw some walls here. I'm not actually, if you look in the bottom right corner, you can see it says dimensions, and it says like 2'4" by 41 feet. So I drew a wall that's 2 feet wide by 41 feet long. It's a little excessive. Probably don't need a 2 foot thick wall, but if it's like a bomb shelter or something, maybe. Anyway, I'll continue drawing. I'll draw some walls. I can draw with rectangles. Again, you can do this like a number of ways. Oops, excuse that. You can do this a number of ways. Oh, I don't want to draw on that plane. Okay, whatever. You don't necessarily have to draw with rectangles. You can draw with like a line and you can offset the line. There's like a million ways to do these things. So this is closed completely. If you wanted to use and then make this 3-dimensional, so you can use the push-pull tool. So that's like directly underneath the rectangle tool. There's the push-pull. And then it kind of highlights where you're working. So like this wall, if I wanted to pull this into 3 dimensions, I would select it and then I would just like pull straight up. And as I'm doing so, on the bottom right corner, it says distance. And it's like actually measuring like 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot. And then you get some idea. You also have Temple Grandin here to get an idea of like how high your walls should be. So maybe you want to go up above her head. Maybe you want low walls. I don't know. So we'll make them up here 7 feet, 7'11". Sure. There's one wall. You can pull off of those. You can pull off of here. There's like a whole number of things that you could do. I'm just going to orbit this so I can see a little bit better. So I'll push and pull some walls up and we can put some windows in and do a number of things. So I'll push and pull, push, push. You get the idea. Like you're just grabbing things and pulling them. There's other ways that you can draw in 3 dimensions. Another one I want to show you is how to cut. So say you wanted to add a window or something. You could take the rectangle tool and you could draw on the surface, and you could use the push-pull tool and you push until it stops and it says that it's on face and let go, and then scroll to the other side and you should see that it's gone through. But I know that sometimes this glitches when I do. Oh, there we go. So I can actually look through now like a little window. Or if you wanted to cut out a door frame, it would be the same idea where you would draw on edge and then you would use the push-pull tool and you would push all the way until it says on edge, on face, and let go, and it actually cuts all the way through. So that's how you make holes and stuff. If you want them to be a certain size, I can show you that as well. If you want to like scale things to fit and measure, like I told you before, there's the measure tool that you can use and it'll tell you right there, like your measurement, what that is. Here it's approximately 20 inches, or you can use the dimension tool as well. It shows you 2 feet, 11 inches. if you want that information there, that's really helpful if you're trying to like put in a window or something. So let's say we want to add a window. You could do that by drawing a rectangle and painting it glass color. That's like poor man's window. Or you can actually insert a window. So I'll show you from the contents library. So that was here, the 3D warehouse. If you want to find like a window, you would literally just search window and hit enter, and then like a whole bunch of things will show up. Now, keep in mind that each of these files, they show you approximately how large they are. Try not to insert really huge things because it's going to slow down your file. But say you wanted to have a window, a glass windows would be really great if it's like not hurricane season or whatever. But let's find one that's not huge. 1.5. This one looks okay. 100K. Okay, so I have this big window here. So I can place the window here. Close. Now, if you wanted to scale it, you could grab the corner of the component or you can move it, but you can also scale, which was here. You can also scale the component by grabbing the corner and pulling it down. So scale is here where we found the move tool. And if you want to scale it a certain amount, that's like a little bit more complicated, and I can get into that with you, how exactly you do that. But if you wanted to take this window, for example, and you wanted to fit it here, so let's move it. Move it right next to the opening. So let's start with on edge here. And I'll show you more or less how we can scale this to fit where we want it to go. So I'll go to my scale. Oops. So this is the opening. I can grab my shape and I can do a uniform scale, which actually like scales the whole thing down, which is helpful. But I can also just scale in like this direction or that direction. And then now I make it so that the window that I just imported actually like custom fits in here. Now, problem is I have really thick walls. So if I rotate to the other side, you'll see that the window is really nice in here. And then there's like a huge ledge on the other side. See, this wall's a little excessive, not gonna lie. A 2-foot wall is probably not necessary, especially if you're putting in a glass window. Like the wall's a little excessive. So I decide later, I'm like, you know what, this wall's kind of excessive. I can use the push pull and I can like actually push the wall in and make it less thick. Like that. Or continue pushing. Then I'd have to get rid of my door frame, but you get the idea. Undo some of that stuff for now, and I'll move it later. So that's how you would bring something in from the contents library. That's how you would scale it. So that's kind of helpful. There's other drawing tools. So like there's push pull, and then there's also this one, which is follow me, which is kind of neat. So you could do like, I don't know, if you wanted to draw ducting, you wanted to something. Let's go to, we can draw like a circle here on this face, and then we could draw like, I don't know, an arc or something. What's this one? 2-point arc. 2-point arc. Like this. So what I have is I have a 2-dimensional shape and I have a path, and follow me takes a shape and it pulls it along a path. So that's here, follow me. So I take follow me and it follows the path that I drew. Whoop. I'm gonna rotate so you can see what just happened. So I have like this tunnel coming out here. So this, I don't know why you would want to make this shape necessarily, but you can do more than just rectangles is my point. You can also use offset, which is really helpful if like, say you've drawn a footprint with a rectangle of like what you want your shelter to look like, then you can offset it a specific distance. So like you say you want to offset it 4 inches, then you can offset the whole thing 4 inches, then you have another rectangle around it, and then you can just extrude that shape. And then you get like your walls all built in. You don't have to do a lot of measurement. So this is what we have so far. Then you can apply textures and paint colors and all of that, like I was saying. So here you can actually go through like with colors, but you can go down like this one, for example. Excuse me. Does it say? Can we see? Here we go. I clicked it. It's actually glass. So if I clicked like this and I painted it glass and then I painted the back one glass, you could actually like see through this wall, for example. which could be helpful, I guess. I don't know that you want to live in a glass wall, but. So if I paint both of those glass, then you can actually like see through the whole thing. But you can also paint in like colors and textures, and you can also bring in different styles and whatever. You could bring in like brick, or you could bring in like, I don't know what you want, like stone, or you could bring in grass, or you could bring in whatever, and you can paint whatever texture, and that's how you add them all here. What else do I want to show you with drawing? I talked about some of those features where you can slice and stuff. I'm going to let you kind of like explore that. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to import a shelter from the 3D warehouse, because I will know that you haven't done the work. I want you to actually draw the shelter. Now, you can import components of your shelter to the 3D warehouse. So if you wanted to import like a bunk bed, or you wanted to import a window, or you wanted to import a door, you wanted to import a water collection system, or you wanted to import whatever, you can do that. You want to import Britney Spears to live inside your house, you can do that. She's there. But again, I caution you with how much that you import from the 3D warehouse, because it will slow down your file, the more stuff that you add. The exception is if you wanted to make your shelter out of like a shipping container or something, I will allow you to import the shipping container, but you have to make changes to the shipping container. So you have to actually like cut away and scale in windows, and you have to add a door, and you have to do all of that. You can't just like import a shipping container and like done. Okay, so if you wanted to do something like that, you can go and like download a shipping container like this. You could download a shipping container, and then you have to like add all the furnitures and like add the flooring and the walls, and then you have to cut away the windows, and you'd have to make an appropriate roof. Like you can't just live in a shipping container like a hobo. You have to actually make it like a proper disaster relief shelter. Maybe you want to add solar panels, maybe you want to add a water collection system. So that would be kind of like the exception, but I don't want you actually just like bringing in a raft or bringing in whatever, something that's like already done. But you can bring in components that are already complete. Like I said, windows, doors, water collection system, that kind of thing. I don't want to show you too much because I don't want you to get ingrained in like what you think you have to do. I'd like you to explore the software. I'd like you to start coming up with ideas. Ideally today before you go, you're going to actually like research the site and pick your site and start designing a shelter. Maybe you even want to start doing the write-up about the climate or whatever. And again, I urge you to think about things like what your shelter is made of and making sure that it's appropriate to the climate, right? Like if it's a desert area, it's going to be really hot during the day and it's going to be really cold at night. So thinking about how your shelter can accommodate that, right? You don't just want to give people blankets. Like you want to make sure that your insulation reflects that. Are there questions at this moment about SketchUp? Then when you go to save, give it a title. So I can call this, I'm going to save to OneDrive. You can actually pick which folder and stuff you want to save it in. So I'll go to Fraser Heights courses. And this is, I have, oh, I can't see it. I can't see which industrial coding it is. Okay, well, we'll put it in pre-engineering. Pre-engineering. And then I'll call it shelter demo. Save. And then the nice thing when you save it, if you want to go home, is when you save it, you can actually see when you've last modified it. So like, let's say you bring in something from the content center that's corrupt, because it happens, and then your whole file is corrupt and you're like, oh my gosh, I spent so much time on this, my life is over. You can actually go back and you can see the history, and you can go to like one of your previous versions, and then you can kind of like undo what you did. So if you go down the rabbit hole and something bad happens, you can more or less get yourself out of it. Okay? Questions, concerns, comments, anything? I'm going to end this recording and then you can ask. All right?